The Star Wars galaxy was a very diverse place, home to many great unique cultures and species. You have your bloodthirsty Genosians, your noble Wookiees, your greedy Hutts, your opportunistic Twi'leks, and then you've got some odd ones. From the very start of the expanded universe, there's always been a wacky corner of Star Wars lore, and today we're going to look into that a little. Have you ever heard of the furry, meter-tall squibs who collected trash, worshipped at junk heaps, spoke basic in an odd dialect, and built a big statue of Mace Windu? If not, then you're in luck, because we're going to be talking all about them in this video. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. As great as Star Wars and sci-fi is, sometimes I find the need to take a break from clones punching droids and want to watch some interesting documentaries. When you're in this vibe, instead of looking for some 480p old documentary on YouTube, why not check out CuriosityStream, which offers thousands of high-quality documentaries about history, nature, science, food, technology, travel, and much more. Featuring 35 collections of curated programs you can stream to any device, anytime, anywhere. Use my link in the description below to sign up for $14.99 to access an entire year of CuriosityStream. That's a pretty good deal if you ask me. Squibs were short and very energetic, standing at about a meter in height on average and featuring a mix of canine and rodent features. They had large ears and thick coats of fur, which insulated them against cold weather and also served as a sort of sensory organ. Squibs could essentially smell through their fur, and they could not only feel but also taste objects by rubbing them up against their coats. They used this odd trait regularly to determine the authenticity of objects in trade and to get them a little foretaste of foods before they put them in their mouths. Pretty handy skills, we'd say. These little guys were native to Score II, a planet in the rimward edge of the Outer Rim's western reaches. It was pretty far removed from the core and from galactic civilization as a whole. The nearest system of any note was Mustafar, and the closest major hyperspace route, the Rim of Trade route, was half a sector away. That swath of space only became widely explored in the Republic's last millennium, in part due to the efforts of the Squibs, who had taken to the stars of their own accord millennia prior. Score II was very rich in many different kinds of resources, but these resources were distributed unequally. Some swaths of the planet had abundant natural resources while others were barren deserts. Score II had a wide variety of climates, which contributed to this inequity. Tall mountains, coastal plains, and temperate forests were among the more livable parts of the planet, while the less livable parts included sweltering deserts and bitterly cold Arctic zones. Moreover, the planet's climate shifted regularly due to fluctuations in the planet's sun, a small red star named Squab. Civilization on Score II started out with nomadic tribes of squibs, which, due to their homeworld's unusual resource distribution, wandered from resource cache to resource cache. It was in these early days that the squibs started to become hoarders. Since it was a real pain to go back to a resource cache to pick up more supplies after leaving it, squib tribes just began gathering as much as they could carry. Due to their innate curiosity, however, this tendency to overpack turned into a tendency to collect odds and ends. If a squib happened upon something they thought was cool, or coovy as the squib term went, they'd just keep it. The inquisitive nature of the squibs meant that they thought a whole lot of things were coovy, and thus squib tribes quickly began to amass great quantities of junk. Some squib tribes eventually got tired of lugging their junk around, and so they formed villages at important resource caches where they could reasonably expect to have most of what they needed on hand. Other squib tribes kept up their wandering, becoming traveling traders that collected goods from various villages and the remote reaches of Score II, which they sold off at other villages. As a result of this lifestyle, squibs became well versed in haggling, which they elevated to an art form and attributed a high cultural significance. Squibs haggled according to a set of 3 principles, which were as follows. If something is free, then it's a good deal. Bargaining is the highest form of communication. And lastly, no haggling with the Uyghurs. The third principle was added after the squibs became integrated into galactic society and ended up competing with the Uyghurs, another scavenger race. Squibs valued haggling itself more than what they got out of it. Oftentimes, they would haggle just for the hell of it. To the eternal fury of the squibs' trading partners, they preferred to make their deals as complex and as confusing as possible. and they were very persistent when it came to making those deals stick. They preferred to trade tangible objects, but were willing to bring anything to the table, up to and including their own offspring. They valued objects according to which something they called a KAR value, which non-squibs had a hard time making sense of. Despite their oddities and infuriating business practices, however, the squibs were honest traders. They detested theft and deception and considered deals binding oaths. Over time, squib society advanced technologically to the point where they developed cities and mass production. The largest of their settlements, Metro Big City, was, by the time of the Clone Wars, reasonably large and home to a major starport, the Metro Big Interplanetary Blastport. Other notable locations on the planet included ancient trading settlements and old junk piles, which may have included the mythological junk heap of the ancients. By the time of the Clone Wars, Score II was ruled by a government called the Squib Polyarchy, a confederation of largely anarchistic trading communities under the limited oversight of a king. In practice, Score II was ruled by the Squib Merchandising Consortium, a planet-wide company of which all squibs were considered members. The consortium managed major trade deals and the Squib Reclamation Fleet, an array of scavenger ships that roamed the galaxy looking for scrap. Its leader was the illustrious chieftain of junkyards, a title usually held by the planet's king. The squibs first encountered galactic civilization in the form of a Dawson trader ship, which encountered Score II sometime during the old Sith Wars. Upon first making contact with an alien species, the squibs entered into an intense round of negotiations, which left the trader with the rights to strip mine one of the planet's Arctic patches and the squibs with the starship technology. This first contact, as well as subsequent interactions with alien traders, allowed the squibs to develop high technology and take to the stars. Even by the time of the Clone Wars, the squibs were known for cobbling together their own technology out of scrap left behind by others, much like the Jawas. Also like with the Jawas, this frequently led to technological innovation. In particular, squibs made some of the best tractor beam technology in the galaxy, which they incorporated into many of their weapons. Their needle ships, the large vessels they used for scavenging, were armed only with an array of tractor beam projectors, which the crew used to surround their ships with protective halos of space junk. Squibs also incorporated tractor beam technology into tensor rifles, unique weapons that used kinetic force to disrupt their target's cells. After taking to the stars, squibs spread throughout the galaxy, developing a reputation as traders and scavengers. Their penchant for collecting junk only intensified, and over time, it made Score II into a fairly prosperous merchant world, if a fairly remote one. Due to the planet's remoteness, Score II didn't join the Republic until the years following the Ruusan Reformations, the Republic Golden Age. However, the squibs had made a name for themselves in the galaxy long before joining the Republic, and as a result, they were a lot better off than many other remote Republic worlds. During the Separatist Crisis, most of Score II's neighbors seceded and joined the Confederacy of Independent Systems. But despite this, the squibs remained loyal to the Republic. In the words of King Ibari Bavabidi, "Our ultra-strong loyalties and royalties to Republicness and whatever it may stand will not let splitty types coax haggle squibbish into leaving, no matter the size of the haggle prize." The king emphasized that his people were going nowhere and thought that the Jedi were Kuvi, giving the Republic one less system to panic about. However, as Score II's neighbors had joined the Confederacy, this left the squibs in a bit of a sticky situation. Despite their loyalty to the Republic, their planet was too remote to house a permanent Republic garrison, as Score II was still considered wild space. However, the Republic still remembered and appreciated the squibs' loyalty and sent clone troopers to the rescue when the planet came under attack during the Clone Wars. 15 months after the Battle of Geonosis, Separatist forces invaded Score II and seized the Metro Big Interplanetary Blastport, which they intended to use to seed the Outer Rim trade route with hyperspace mines. However, this Separatist plot was foiled by a detachment of the Grand Army of the Republic, led by Mace Windu, and for some reason, Commander Cody. Windu and his men drove the Confederacy off Score II, liberating the spaceport and awing the squibs with their formidable combat skills. The squibs were particularly taken with Windu due to his Kuvi purplish blade and impressive force powers. Many squibs named their children after Windu, and the Polyarchy dedicated a bronzium statue to the Jedi Master, who they named the big-time hero of beyond squib eliteness. The squibs got through the rest of the Clone Wars well enough. Their scavenger fleet was a frequent sight on the battlefields of the conflict, collecting debris from destroyed warships. The Republic recruited some squib scavengers to serve as informants who would inform the Jedi if they found anything noteworthy in the wreckage of Separatist warships. After the Clone Wars, the squibs went on to be similarly helpful to the Rebel Alliance, as well as to the New Republic and its successor states. So that's the story of the squibs, one of the oddest and most interesting species in the Star Wars universe. But what do you think? Are there any other species you'd like to see us make videos about? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comment section below. And guys, if you're itching for some more content, make sure you check out our new channel where we post very high quality videos. We take a look at some of the most badass people from all different eras of history. So if that sounds like it tickles your fancy, that's the first link in the description below. If you're more of a musical type bloke, we also have our Relax Jack music channel where we use a lot of the stuff posted there on the channel here. So if you like the background music we use, make sure you check out that channel. And if you want access to a behind the scenes Discord where you can chat to myself and the team who work with me, make sure you consider donating there. And if you just want access to the wider Geetsly's community, check us out at our main Geetsly's Discord and our Geetsly's gaming network. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.